Thanks very much for everybody coming for today's Finance and General Purposes Committee at Stanley Town Council. We'll move straight on the agenda. Number one is apologies for absence.
We have received apologies from Councillor Christie, Councillor Timby and Councillor Stevenson, Chairman.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Yeah.
Just in on item 7, as I'm a county councillor, but obviously being a county in general, EU funds come through my portfolio, so just want to declare one for community interest.
Anybody else? I don't know whether we need to declare one, but we may as well. Yeah. So Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Hampson and myself will all declare an interest as well. It's not the queue. Anybody else?
Members of the County Council.
Yeah. Anybody else need to declare an interest or anything? Okay. Move on to item 3, appropriate announcements from the chair. I don't have any announcements. Have you got any on?
Just the usual ones. We are obviously filming the meeting. If one member of the public filming the meeting in petition, is anyone else recording the meeting? No. And could you all please make sure that your phones are either set to silent or switched off while the meeting is in session? And obviously, as always, please wait till you're recognised by the chair before speaking.
Item number 4, public participation. Do you have any public participation?
I received one written question from a member of the public in respect of the question actually directed at Inspector Stewart about the Stanley Bus Station. Given that Inspector Stewart is going to give us an update on that, I don't think we need to do any more than noted.
Okay. Thank you. Item 5, confirmation of minutes, which is attachment A. We're asked to approve as a correct record the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee held on the 14th of November. Is everybody happy with the minutes? Yeah, second. Yeah, thanks. Very much. So I'll just we'll move swiftly on item number 6, which is policing update. Well,
I'm just as happy, I think anyone can see it's just as well unless you want us over there.
you may as well come and sit here, then you'll be on the camera, so everybody know what you look like.
Do I have to?
Inspector Dave Stewart from Stanley Police is here to give us an update on policing in the town, and also to say hello, I'm Dave Stewart, and I'm the new inspector in Stanley, I think. So.
Yeah, that was the gist of it. I had a meeting with Alan a couple of weeks ago, and he kindly invited me to this just to say, introduce myself to it, because I know I've met some of you as I look around the room, but not everybody, so it's just an opportunity to catch you all together. Before I go on to what I see down there is the policing update, there's a couple of things I just wanted to say. I think when I've spoken to some of you that I've met, I think one thing that's come out that I probably didn't realise was important, but it has been important to the people I've spoken to is that I'm in this role now. I'm quite comfortable in my own skin. I'm happy where I am in the police service, and I've got about 7 years to go before the earliest age I can return. I intend to be here for at least those 7 years. So I know there's been a lot of good people doing a lot of good work in the role I've got over the last few years. But what I hope to offer is a bit of continuity. I live in the area, I work in the area, my kids have gone to school in the area. That's probably all you need to know about me at this time anyway. Getting on to the update business, so as I've gone to a couple of meetings, I was at the Stanley AAP on Monday, and one thing that we were very interested in hearing about was the response to the antisocial behaviour that happened pretty much on the week of Halloween through bonfire night. I know you'll have seen things in the written press and probably on the televised press as well. There's been quite a bit of interest in it from the media. What happened was, and excuse me if people think that they know this already, but I'll sort of start from the beginning with it because it will make sense. And I've got a bit of a request to make of you all at the end as well. So, the flashpoint was Saturday night. There was some bother from Halloween, kids going around in fancy dress, etc. And then you had the bonfire night display, which was very well attended, very well run. But a lot of kids came up to the bus station. Kids from Stanley, kids from Sunnyside, kids from Consett, kids from all over. It was a larger number than there would ever normally be. The police and PCSOs, a small number, about 3 or 4, went went over to help a young lady who had probably had too much to drink, about 13, 14 years old, and who had obviously had some sort of emotional distress in relation to a boyfriend or something as well. Police tried to help her. Some of her friends obviously thought that they were better positioned to help her than adults in the emergency services, and it all got a little bit fractious. The girl ultimately was taken home to the care of her parents and was quite fine, but as you saw from the events that night and the body cam footage and the CCTV footage, there was quite a disturbance which resulted in all of the police resources from the west locality, which we would call the west, which is Constance Stanley and Chesney Street, would have attended the station on the night to sort things out. There was further trouble on Monday, which was the bonfire night, where the fire service did have some fireworks thrown at them, and there was fires lit around the place that shouldn't have been, basically. So we had that week. In response to that week, what we've done is we've gone into the North Durham Academy schools and given presentations in assemblies to separately the years 7, 8 and 9. We've addressed what I would call the criminality level. Those are the children, the youths who committed offences, are all being dealt with for those offences. There's in excess of 12 criminal offences being investigated, and they are sort of at different various stages of completion. As well as that, you have the youths who acted on what I would call a level just below criminality, but were still causing a disturbance and still didn't help the situation. A number of them have been invited into the police station with the parents to watch the body cam footage, and this was before anything went out on the television. And all of those interactions have been very positive, but by that what I mean is that the parents have left with a far greater understanding of the reality of what happened. I think you'll appreciate that sometimes when children go home and say, oh, I was gassed by the police, when you actually see what happened, there's a more clarity around what actually happened on the night. So they've been very positive interactions. We've tried to get more boots on the ground on Friday, Saturday nights. Friday night this week, we're having an Operation Stay Safe. For those of you who've never heard of that before, never experienced that before, that is when quite a few agencies come together and we base ourselves in one location. A load of cops, PCSOs, wardens go out and try and in the early stages of the evening find those children who perhaps are under the influence or are causing a bit of a disturbance. They get brought back to a central safe location, at which point the parents are called out and invited to come and get them, have a conversation with someone like myself and address those things very early in the night. So I'll look into that now. Basically what I was going to ask you was, is there any chance of having this place as a venue for holding the Stay Safe operation on Friday evening between, let's say, 5 o'clock and about 10 o'clock? By all means, have a think about that while I'm finishing off. But that was something that Dave Clark phoned us this afternoon and said, we've got a plan B, we could use somewhere else, but this would seem like a very perfect venue for us if that was possible.
There's normally Yvonne Cook's dance school until about 7:30 in the evening, which is at kids. And after that, I'm not sure, James, do you know off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head.
No. Look at diary. Can we check the diary now?
Yeah.
I think it'd be useful. Okay.
Yeah, basically, so I think what I've described there is a brief summary of what the issues were on that week. That is what our response has been. I mean, you've obviously seen, I was at the AAP and there was some stuff a couple of weeks ago on actually made the national media, I think, where Sergeant Emma Kane and Dave Clark were interviewed. Last week I was asked to speak to the Evening Chronicle, and in relation to that, what I tried to do there was to sort of put my foot on the board and say, look, let's not get carried away turning this into something that it's not, and portraying Stanley as something that it isn't. So while I appreciate that some media outlets will go a certain way with the story, I hope that the interview with the Evening Chronicle put some balance on that to sort of say, look, as far as I'm concerned, Stanley's a lovely place, and this has happened. And the reality is, it probably happens in lots of places a lot of the time. It just so happens that we're living in an age now. I mean, when I was a young cop, I've been in the middle of worse things like that, but we didn't have cameras then, we didn't have CCTV then, so this sort of imagery would never have been shown. But day it's sort of, it's relatively available. So that's pretty much the update that I've got for you in relation to that. It is a piece of work that's ongoing. What I can assure you is that people will be held accountable for matters of criminality, and they'll be held accountable for those behaviours that were below the level of criminality. I think what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to do going forward is, I know that we're never going to eradicate the issue of youth antisocial behaviour in Stanley or anywhere else in the country or world for that matter. What we've got to try and do is just get a suite of tactics in place which are as effective as they can be, and I'll be the first one to say we'll try things that don't necessarily work first time. We'll try things that do work first time, but we'll learn from the things that don't get it right first time, and that's all of us, not just the police. And with those tactics in place, we can then look for because we are going to get hotspot times again where things like almost on the lead up to Christmas now, hence the Stay Safe operation, but things like when the schools break up for Easter, when the summer holiday break comes around again, when you open again and we've got Halloween and bonfire night, similar things are going to happen because kids who we aren't even on the radar yet because they're still at primary school will move up a year, and that whole dynamic will change. So the work will continue in the schools, the work will continue with boots on the ground, the work will continue with the wardens that we're working with as well. As I probably should have mentioned, the escalation process that the wardens and the SB wardens and the council have, we're very much getting involved with that now, because I've said from the outset, whatever we do as the police in terms of criminality or getting parents in, that must run alongside the escalation process that the council wardens have, which, and I'm sure you probably know this, but starts off with a warning letter, goes to a home visit, goes to an acceptable behaviour contract, and then finally goes to an injunction. So those things are all in place. Our systems are now, the police intelligence systems all set up so that we've identified a number of nominals who I would basically call them the ringleaders in all this, because you do have an element of the ones who lead the other ones on. Those have been identified. Those are the ones that we'll be tackling first and giving the priority to. Those are the ones where we know now where and if they're on the escalation process, we know how to get them on and we know how to move them up, working with the ones as efficiently as possible. So that's the update on that for you. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that.
I'm sure there will. Alice had his hand up since you started.
First of all, I want to ask whether we have
Yeah, Councillor Nairn. This Friday is a bit problematic. We've got Timeless Theatre in the main hall until 8:30 doing rehearsals for their show. And Pauline Cook dances on from 4 till 7. If it was just Pauline Cook, they're in a side room, we might be able to use the hall, but we've got Timeless in the hall till 8:30. I think we'll struggle.
how much space do you need?
Could you use this room?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought this room would be ideal.
Well, this room is available and there will be staff. There's already staff on until at least 8:30 because there's rehearsals in the hall, but obviously we probably need to put some extra staff on. You have your own staff.
Yeah, I mean, some of the agencies I think are sort of intend to finish at 9 o'clock, but I know that this issue won't finish at 9 o'clock and we'll be here till 10 o'clock or beyond. But we can always go somewhere else to the police station or whatever to finish off the operation should that become necessary. And do you know what I'll say is, I realise that this is me asking 48 hours before starting. We did have alternatives, don't get me wrong, we plan to have alternatives, but I just thought as I was speaking here, I would put the question out there to see if
Colin, then we'll bring Bob back.
I just want to make a brief proposal on the back of what's been discussed. Can I propose that we offer the police and the partners the space free of charge with tea, coffee and anything else they need, and that we seek to try and arrange for the staff to work a little bit later so they can run the whole operation out here, if that's at all possible. I don't know if anyone wants to second that.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. And there's an open invitation for anyone who wants to come along and observe this operation taking place to come along. If you just give me an idea of something like what for the next couple of days, and then I'll know.
If it's alright, I'll just bring Carol in, please, because I know you've been to one of these before, Carol.
Oh, yeah.
So, give us one out.
I went onto one concert. I don't know if you'll need some screens and one thing in the around the area for the different agencies, because you know they're normally, I don't know if it's going to be run the same way, where they have the briefing to start off with and go out to different places.
Well, this will be my first day seeing operation.
Right.
I don't know why they might have had screens the first time.
Well, I think it's in case when they bring them back into here to form the parents,
Dave just phoned me this afternoon to ask about, asked the question about the Susie. He's obviously, he thinks that it's going to be a good venue, so,
Alan, did you want to come back in again on
I
this?
do. Thank you, Ted. I know you're new here, but you would have done your maths and your and sort of thing, but we have now taken on wardens and clean and green team to be able to help the police. We are subsidizing or paying for the police car. What I wanted to ask was, in the light of what you come over here and see, is our initiative in helping you substantial and adequate? And how does it compare with all the other people, areas and towns that you work with? Because we have a history of working with the police, especially at the time when we used to have a crime and safety committee over here. And we have had a history of working with the police, but now we have actually got our own wardens to work with the police, and we've got the police cars. So are you happy with the support that we are giving you, or is there something else that we might have to offer you?
well, ironically, it sounds strange to say this, but with me coming here, the events of the Halloween is almost coming at a good time for me, if you like, because it throws me right into the middle of it straight away. What I did think was, my background is, I've been an inspector in the police for 10 years, and I was a response inspector, so that means I was 24/7, so you know, the sort of blue light response. In coming to this, what did surprise me was, is that when I asked the question, how many of the local youths are on the escalation process already? In other words, they're on there somewhere and we can bump them up after. The answer was, I think that either one or none was. And I found that, it probably wasn't the answer I was expecting, but that's not to say I'm right or wrong, just that it wasn't the answer I was expecting. Now I think this has been a good opportunity to work with Susan, Tom and the wardens, and I think we're having quite a positive experience. I'm not saying it's all going 100%, because I think we've had instances where we've shared licences and training on the police systems in order for them to be able to go on there and to be able to see things more quickly, and to sort of use that intelligence to task their people out where they need to be, and also to put their own intelligence on, because I'm aware that not every antisocial behaviour job is reported to the police, and a lot of the time it's reported to the council, it goes on their system. So just making sure that we'll have the big picture there. If you ask me that question again, in a couple of months' time when we've been through this, I'll probably give you a better answer, but what I can say right now is that it appears to be positive. And if there are any rubs, Deborah Hatfield, is it, phoned me yesterday about something where there was a bit of a rub, and we had a conversation, and I think it's the best part's resolved. So I'd say that the support's there, but like I say, I won't be able to answer that better in a couple of months.
Thank you. David?
Just a couple of things, Jim. One of the questions Paul asked, how does it compare with other parish councils in the support that we're given in there? How does that compare with other parish councils in the county? Are you aware of any that does it in the way we do? Because we also have a youth project which helps on that front, because they get hold of the children and influence them. So, are you aware of anything else that's happening?
Well, I can go back and ask my peers, the other neighbourhood inspectors around the county, what their experiences are. I'll only add to say that when I've worked on the response side of things, it's been more a case of us going in to sort out the first sort of half an hour of it, and then the aftermath has been picked up by neighbourhood teams, probably quite right. So, I have worked all around the county as it happens. I've worked across the coast, I've worked down in Bishop. But again, to answer your question, it was something I would have to ask my peers to give you a proper answer, because I probably can't sit here and say one way or the other whether what the comparisons.
Okay. David, do you want to come back in again?
Yeah, just if you don't mind, just it's been suggested that you could come back again. Can I suggest that you come back in February? That gives you the 2 months and give us an update what's happening. And then we'll also have coming up after that, there'll be our annual meeting where we're asking for any organisations that's getting support and working with us to be there and have a small display if you want. So everybody that's doing anything in the community can get together and see what's happening as part of the annual meeting. Would you be able to come along to that as well?
So the annual meeting would be there? Was that to be arranged? May.
May time. I can't remember the
April,
exact
May.
date.
And in the February meeting, is that this finance?
It's this full February.
Yeah.
February. Okay, well, if you want this to be, well, not a standing item, but an item that you want to come back for February, then yeah, I'm more than happy to come back in February. What I hope is, I'll have the opportunity to speak to most of you in any case before then, and I'm sure the question of how that UVSB issue played out will be discussed, but I'm more than happy to come back in February if that's what you want.
Does anybody, Carl, do you want to come in?
Just a question and then a comment, if I can. I'd just be interested. You said that you said words to the effect of Stanley's no different or any other sort of similar town in terms of the trouble. I just wanted to know from a statistical point of view, is Stanley a safe place to live and visit? I think that would be helpful just to put it into a broader context. But before you do, I'll just pass a comment as well. That I think the events that unfolded over the particular weekend when the footage was sent out, sort of, they're fairly unprecedented up here as far as I'm aware in terms of the attacks on the emergency services. And I just wanted to put on record my sort of view that the police in Stanley, more than most parts of the county, and I do work in a lot of different parts of the county through the roles I have gone above and beyond engaging with all sections of the community, and particularly young people. In fact, it's the police that have led the engagement in a much more positive and proactive way than any other agency in this town, with the development of the Packed House project when it was originally a pizza and a food night in the Tommy Armstrong Centre. And I think it's absolutely appalling that a minority of young people in the town have turned on the emergency services and people who are there to keep the public safe at large. I just wanted my views recording on that. I think the police do a terrific job in Stanley and go well above and beyond what police officers do in other parts of the town.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I've said before that, in my opinion, Dave Clark is a genius when it comes to the things, the sort of things that he's been involved with, and that he's worked with a lot of people that I can tell from this room as well. Other parts of the county, I don't think it's any different than any other parts of the county, if I'm being honest, because believe it or not, what happened in the bus station was there happened to be a large number of kids there. I've been stood on Concert Front Street when there's been a 16-year-old, and this was going back years, a 16-year-old birthday party at one of the pubs, and it was a Wednesday night, and I remember there was just fights going on with the police up and down the front street of Concert, but that was before you had the cameras, or before you had body cams. There'll be addresses we go to in Concert Stanley or Chesley Street where we'll go into a street where there's been a dispute between two neighbours, and the next thing you know, you've got people trying to involve themselves who end up getting arrested and fighting with the police who had nothing to do with the original job. So it's not even just necessarily a youth type of issue, it's just that sometimes people seem to get carried away and the police become a little bit of a target when they're at a job. But we deal with it, we've dealt with it for years, it'll happen again. But I don't think Stanley's any different than all the other places I've worked in County Durham. I don't think it has any sort of particular issue.
Anybody else want to come in? Christine's been with.
When I was council for the Tanfield area, we had a lot of problems down by Billies. You go down the footpath and the drinking and the whatever else they're doing down there. And they started to get under control. Again, it was wardens and police with everybody else all working together. Then it just stopped. But we're making progress, and I can't understand why this stopped.
Well, it's all about sustainability, isn't it? Because you can throw loads of things at an issue and have a positive effect for a period of time. But it's the sustainability of those resources, isn't it, I suppose. Now, the Stay Safe operation, for example, it's not just based on the town centre. In fact, far from it, in the early parts of the night, it'll be places like Oakey's and the other part. They'll be trying to scoop the kids there if they're being disorderly or if they've had a drink or whatever, and bringing them back to here. And that's what I'm on about, is like this suite of tactics, because I'm big borrowing and stealing people on a weekend to sort of work a bit of overtime, to come from a different area, just to put boots on the ground in Stanley Town Centre. I can't keep doing that forever. And at some point, Concert's going to have an issue with something, and Chesley Street's going to have an issue with something, and I'm going to have to do what I've reciprocate, if you like, to what you've done for me. So what we're trying to build up here, and this is why we're getting the parents in, this is why we're using the body count for it, because that is sustainable and that's something that you can do going forward as well. So yeah, I take your point, but we do, and a stay safe operation doesn't happen every week. This happens, you know, it wouldn't be effective if it happened every week.
This weekend is really, because of the forecast snow, and I'm trying to see anybody fall, hurt themselves,
But
and end up.
I mean, this hasn't happened by accident, but it's on the back of the fact that we are in the lead up to Christmas, and we have had these issues in the end of October, the start of November. We just thought that the 14th of December was going to be a perfect day, despite the fact that I'm on leave. A perfect day to have the operation.
Thanks for that. Anybody else?
We still have an outstanding motion from Councillor Marshall about the use of the room to stay safe and leave.
Is everybody happy with offering the police the use of the room from whenever they need till whenever they need? I think that's the final motion. Yeah, everybody happy with that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think you can either go and sit back in the crowd or you can.
Well, as I say, I am on leave, so my wife will kill us if I stay on too long. I stay here on Monday and I can stay safe on Friday.
So should we say hello, Dave Spike, to the camera? I should be watching you or not?
Right, thank you very much anyway, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, CLLD update. Gemma, it's your turn for the hot seat. You can take as much of a spin in this game, please.
Well, I'm down there if you like.
No, you're alright. Right, Gemma's come to give us an update on the CLLD funding and how we can possibly access it and stuff.
Thank you for having us here. I know I was supposed to be here a couple of weeks ago. I do apologise for giving apologies so close to the meeting. I've just come to talk to you tonight about community local led development with regards to the programme. The programme's been running now for a year. We launched in December last year and we're just kind of a year in fruition. I'm not sure how many of you know about community local led development, so I'll kind of just take it back to the beginning. I know I've met a few of the councillors around the table, some came to the drop-in sessions. I know some of the DCC councillors, obviously it's in Carl's portfolio. Community local led development, there's 2 programmes. There's one in the north of the county and there's also one in the south of the county. The north of the county we actually cover Chester Street, which is wards of Chester Street, most of Stanley and a tiny little bit of the Derwent Valley area in Powelton. The funding is targeted to the top 20 to 30% deprived areas of those wards, so that's where the majority of Stanley comes in. We have a total of around about 1.2 million to actually spread and spend on projects over the next 3 years. We'll fund the project until September 2021. CLLD will go until 2022. The last 6 months of it will be the qualitative and quantitative months where we kind of look at the outputs, what we've targeted, what we've hit, what we haven't, what we spent, and see where the programme has been successful and hasn't. There's 2 strands of the funding for CLLD. There's ERDF, which is European Regional Development Fund, and that's kind of, if you think about it, that's towards the businesses. That's kind of getting people to kind of, if they've got a business, to look to kind of fund that business further, taking it from a micro business maybe to a shop front or a little shop, or kind of taking on an employee. The European Social Fund, ESF funding, is more about the people. That's getting those people who are furthest away from the labour market back into work or thinking of going back into work. That's kind of more of a handheld approach type of funding. So projects who will come to us maybe look to do kind of a mentoring project, a one-to-one project, look to kind of build a project around a certain thing, so whether it be childcare, to kind of get people into certain qualifications. That's very, very much about the people, that strand of funding. There's 5 priority themes that actually sit within within CLLD, that both come under the ERDF and the ESF funding, which are all in front of you, and they also have, from the £1.3 million that we have targeting the projects, they have certain money levels that are actually attained to each of those priorities. So it's a little bit like the Area Action Partnerships, how they actually have their priorities. We've got those 5 set priorities that we need to target, and we have to hit certain outputs of projects over the next 3 years. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Where we are so far, we have actually funded a year on. We've funded our first project, which is a one-to-one mentoring project. It's a DCC project. The employability team came to us, I think probably at the beginning of the year, to actually look at the project. The timeline for actually getting a project through the CLLD process is quite heavy. You're looking about 6 to 8 months of the actual application period. So we're actually governed by a local action group, which we have a mix of private and public people sitting on the group. And they're like your, I know many of you are familiar with your Area Action Partnership boards. They're kind of like the board, the decision-making board. So it's a 2-tier application process for CLLD. So it's when you kind of work with me, the coordinator on the ground. When you have a project, we work on the pipeline of it. We look to take it for an expression of interest. Then that goes to the funding and programmes team at County Hall for technical appraisal. Then it's presented to the local action group for decision. They decide whether they would like to invite that project to the next stage of application, whether they have conditions, they will put certain conditions on it and get them to come back with the expression of interest, or totally to reject it at expression of interest. If they're invited back to application period, they again work with myself through the application, which is quite a text-heavy application, and then it goes through another technical appraisal by the funding and programmes team, and then it's taken to the LAG for final decision to whether you can receive an offer letter, again whether you put certain conditions on, you reduce the amount, you maybe put like further timeline on the project, or they totally reject it. So like I said, from application, from project idea to actual offer letter, you're looking about 6 to 8 months. So we have worked with the employability team. We've actually funded an employability mentor in the Stanley and Chester Street area to actually work with participants on the ESF level. For those furthest away from the labour market, is a hand-holding experience to get people maybe back to work, their CVs up to date, a little bit of hand-holding, confidence building. So that's the first project we've funded so far. We've got another 2 further projects who are in actually application status, who will present their application at the next local action group, which will meet on a bi-monthly basis. They'll both be presented in January, and then we have a further, probably about 6 expression of interest working to actually look to take them to the next groups. Is that all right? Is there anything I can touch upon?
Oh, we'll get some questions. Bala's always got his hand up first, Bala.
You said that there was a mentoring project that you're looking after which does some work in Stanley.
Yes.
Are there any other groups in Stanley that have either applied for it or are getting money for it?
With EU funding, we're not like open and transparent as they are with the AP. We do have a level of confidentiality that we can really not actually say anything until that project's been funded. But I will say the uptake in Stanley has been the highest that I've had across the North CLLD area. Intervention in Stanley, in particular local action group members, local people talking about CLLD, and people actually coming forward with an actual an interest and also a project idea has been higher. Chester Street is definitely the harder place for me to target, and that's some conditions that I kind of need to work on in the new year. Getting interest from Chester Street, and also obviously getting those projects that have got interest in Stanley through and funded.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I'll just pick a few bits up. So, in a nutshell, Gemma, all of this funding is targeted towards employability and growth.
Jobs and growth, yes.
Jobs and growth. And so, if an individual member of this council wants to support a project in their area, how do they access you?
So for funding, there is a call document, which is a live document that we have out at the moment. That's spread across the 5 priority themes. There is an intervention rate that there is with most funding. So CLLD will fund 55% of the project, and the other 45% will be funded by the project application. So it could be that match funding comes from a cash resource, it could be staff time, it could be volunteer time. There's a various, depending on which stream they actually go into the funding, that it can be funded through that 45%. The call document asks for projects of grant value of £10,000 or more.
Is there an upper limit on the grant?
No, just 10,000 plus. If you want to take the 4 million, you can.
Yes, please.
Got 550 grand to put in.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, John.
Thank you very much.
You're released.
The document that Gemma put some hard copies out I'll email it round to members.
Yeah.
And is it, am I okay to share your email address?
Certainly my email address, so if anybody's interested in becoming a land group member, we're always looking for members to come forward.
Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to number 8, Warden's update. We've got updates, reports for the Stanley Town Council Warden team for October and November. The operations manager and a member of the team, an invisible member of the team, I think. Will be in attendance at the committee to discuss in detail. I'll throw this one over to you, James.
Okay. Yeah. Well, obviously you've had the reports for October and November. Linda Snow was going to come, I believe she's in New York, and both the wardens had some other commitments tonight. Generally, I'm really quite happy with the way they're working. They've got an excellent attitude. They really display a professional attitude to everything I ask of them. They're always keen to update me. They keep me informed all the time. They're working with different partners. They're linking in with different agencies. They're linking in with schools. They're using some of our priorities to use as a tool to get into these communities and work with schools. I know some of the members have been out and worked with them and come to different meetings, and I think they're pretty back up how professional they are and keen they are to try and make a difference. I would just encourage us to continue as we are. That's the way I look at it. They really are meeting the requirements that we've set them to do. I don't know if you want to add, Mark, you came to the meeting the other day with them.
Yeah, the times that I've met them have been really positive. They seem to be making a difference. They also seem to be, they have a bit, I don't know, how would you say it? They have a decent balance of carrot and stick, if you know what I mean. They're trying to work with people, but if they see things that there isn't going right or going wrong, they're not shy on giving people tickets or things right up when they need to, when they're forced to.
They're always willing to go out. If any member does want to do a walkabout, be more than happy. I think you went out there today, did you, Val, with what was the name?
I went out with you. I showed you a lot of things that have been started up and you're working with. But I'd like to keep in touch with them on a regular basis because things are always cropping up, and I think it's going to be a dynamic situation that we have with our wardens and with our clean and green team. And it is left up to councillors to really activate that dynamic involvement. So we have to go and meet with them and make sure that we look after whatever issue that we have within the area.
That's fine. Does anybody else want to come in on this? Okay, the two recommendations are we note the reports provided and we decide if any changes of the priorities for the warden service are required. James is suggesting that we note and decide that no changes are required. Does anybody else want to disagree with that, or is everybody happy with it? Everybody seems happy. So do we agree to note the report and keep it the same and not have any changes? Everybody happy? Okay. Agree? Yeah. We want item number 9, accounts for payment and bank reconciliation for November 2018, which is attachment D. I'll hand over now in case he wants to say anything about them.
Not particularly, Chair, but these are just the usual reports detailing our payments, receipts, bank balances and bank reconciliation for members' information. And the budget will move on to the next one. So this is our different questions from members. I've got nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. We've got attachments to D to J. Does anybody want to ask any questions or have spotted any problems? Or David?
Chairman, I'll just move that we approve the payments for the accounts and vote the bank reconciliation. And we accept the reports.
Okay, thank you.
Seconded.
Okay, thanks Alex. Anybody else want to come in on this one? Is everybody happy? All happy? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item 10, budget monitoring and draft budget report. Part 1 is budget monitoring, which is attachment K. It's usually made to
Didn't help us switch it off.
Where would we at? Oh yes, item 10.1, budget monitoring attachment K. The budget's being prepared, the review of the year is being prepared with the forecast long-term committees as to consider the matter and make recommendations. Anything to say on this one, Alan?
Not really. I mean, obviously I've provided a short report which adds to the reports which have been issued in previous meetings. As we're getting closer to the end of the year, the estimates I think are getting a little bit firmer. On our present course, I think we'll be able to, if we don't commit any additional expenditure that we're not budgeted for, we'll be able to finish with an underspent position. At the moment, we've updated the salary estimates, put the salaries in the right place, and so we're estimating it to be in the region of £10,000. I'm hoping to slightly improve on that position so that we can be underspent by enough to offset our transfers from general reserve to earmark reserves at year end, so we end up with a neutral position in terms of the reserves as well. But no, I mean, the report as it stands, I've highlighted areas of underspend and overspend. Really, the report, which is attachment J, which is attached to the previous one, gives you the year-to-date figures and the projections. So again, if members have any specific questions. The major change in terms of the way the budgets are structured is that when we set up the wardens, we set it up with the intention or the preference of running the service in-house. So we set up a number of budget headings under that, like staffing, training, etc., etc. And since we're commissioning the service, I've just condensed that onto one line because it seems sensible to do that, so just to make it easier to look at. And that's it really. Well, other than we've gone through, Susan and myself have done a more detailed projection of the year end. That's that. Budget monitoring.
Does anybody have any questions found on this one? Okay. We were asked to consider and make recommendations to council. So does anybody want to comment on the proposal? Right. Do we agree to note the report? Because we're going to apparently do it. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. Item 2 on number 10 is the updated draft budget, which is attachment L. At the meeting of the full council resolved to set aside funding for a number of projects and initiatives which are detailed in the attached report. Committees asked to consider the matter and make recommendations for council in respect of the level of precept. Alan, do you want to comment on this one?
I'll just very swiftly, because obviously the report hopefully speaks for itself. Full council determined to introduce additional expenditure in next year's budget for the headings in item 1. I've run those through the next year's budget, and that means with our existing commitments we need to find an additional £33,648. I've identified a number of ways in which council can achieve that amount. Obviously the 4 recommendations are to reduce spending in other areas where we've got existing expenditure. There's limited scope to do that, given that we've done a number of multi-year arrangements. We can raise all the money from the precept, or we can raise some of the money from the precept and some using capital reserves, because an element of growth is capital for the Christmas tree, lights, etc. And so I've put forward a few examples, and given that the instruction from council is that we are going to find this growth in the budget, my recommendation would be that we consider an increase in the region of 2 to 3%, and a mixture of the remainder of the capital in order to meet the requirement from council. I've also tabled today just some worked examples of what precept increases at various rates look like in terms of the individual council tax band for information. Those are on the table in hard copy. I've also placed an electronic copy into the Dropbox folder on the members' email system. So really, the decision for committee to consider is how they want to achieve the growth in the budget which council has directed them to apply.
On this one we asked to consider and make recommendations for the level of precept. Does anybody want to come in on this one?
Thanks, Chairman. Well, we're at that time of year again when we need to agree the budget for the next financial year. As in previous years, the December meeting agrees the work project we will undertake in the next financial year. It is an accumulation of the last few months' work in subgroups, committee meetings and full council. So there's no surprises, it's all in there, what we want to do. Legally, we are required to set a budget at the January council meeting, and the responsible finance officer needs to have a fully costed proposal presented to give sufficient time for proposed work to be put up for submission. Since I was elected leader of Standing Town Council, we've developed plans that support our communities. The council rely on many organisations in Standing Council area to help bring our communities together and support those residents in need and enhance people's lives in Standing. In recent times, I do not recall a time when so many have faced hardship brought about by universal credit. Some having to undertake 2 jobs to survive, being made homeless and having no food for their families. In setting the budget, we need to consider how best we can bring about hope, health and quality of life to our residents. We are working with and pleased to offer support to many organisations and the many volunteers who work tirelessly in the community to bring about that hope and help. Just a few things that we support. I don't intend to go into exactly what they do because we all know. There's Packed House, Just for Women, Shade, Debt Management and Advice Services, Detached Work, all key priorities for the people of Standing, and we need to carry on delivering that. On the other side, we've got Play in the Park, the annual firework display, Armed Forces Day, War Memorials, lest we forget. History, miners and our heritage, and that's mentioned in there as well. Environmental wardens and the neighbourhood wardens, we all realise what a difference they are making a terrific difference in bringing about a better, cleaner neighbourhood. Christmas lights, well, it's been terrific, the response we've had to the lights that we've had put up around Standing. We do intend to expand that into the communities away from the town. The Civic Hall, obviously we gave a commitment that we would update it and bring it back to life, and the committee is meeting, we've got the cross-party committee and looking at what can be done. And there is money in the budget to do that. We need to ensure that the Mayor and his role in the communities is recognised, hence the budget for him to be able to operate. The theatre, we have had problems, we'll identify that and we're working to improve the product there and make sure it's financially viable for people. The cinema, we've agreed to a return of the cinema in here. It's going to be a good facility, we want to make that affordable to people to come and have theme nights, so that's in the budget. Supporting local groups, we decided that we would support Southmore Operatic Society, Oxhill Youth Club and Stanley Stars by offering them the use of the hall to put their shows on. This ensures them an income that will sustain them and the people that operate them and the people that go to them on a long-term basis. We'll work ongoing on the improvement facilities in the building, and there's a lot more to do. We all know that there's some areas that are not quite up to standard, but we have got things in the budget to do that. We're working with adults and children and youth work. Can I suggest that now is the time to make comment or suggested changes to the programme of work and events that are being brought forward? If there are alternative proposals, now is the opportunity to put them for consideration. Come January, it won't be a discussion about it. It will be set in the budget. The clerk will have worked it out. He'll have done all the work on the finances and come back with a firm proposal. But I'm moving that we increase the precept by 3% to cover the items that we have in there. So I'm
else want to come in? Did I hear a little voice from somewhere?
Alan's making the motion. Yeah.
Right. Nobody else wants to come in? Okay, so it's been proposed by David Markle, seconded by Ballin there, that we increase the precept by 3% to meet our budget. Our growth, sorry, in the budget.
And presumably the remainder comes from the strategic reserve from capital investment.
That's quite correct.
Okay, all those in agreement? Against?
Chair, can I just make a comment? It amazes me, we've gone through everything that we proposed, been through things that we've all put together, that we've worked over the few months to bring forward. Now we've got people voting against budget. Where do they come from? I mean, where's their proposals? Why have they not brought anything? They knew tonight was the last night that we needed to have a budget in place. We can't go forward in January and not have a budget. That's a legal requirement. And yet the opposition will sit there and put their hands up and say, we don't agree with this. Where's your proposal bringing forward? We'll consider it, we'll look at it and see what we can do. But no, they'll sit on their hands and they'll go over here, they'll go to Facebook, they'll see all sorts of things, but they haven't contributed one iota to putting this budget together, and it really gets my goat, Chairman.
Yeah.
What is the point?
Dave?
What? Right, right, well, there's no point. I mean, well voted, everything we do, well voted, but the reason I am against it, as you've said, this universal credit thing, well, people are in trouble. People, and it's proven that they are in trouble. To put an extra burden on them, is it really worth it? You know,
James, do you want to come in?
I understand what you're saying in regards to the universal credits, but with what we're going to be providing over the next year, it works out around about 13 pence a month. So it's not like it's a massive increase, it's just over about £1.80 a year per household, on average, about on the band aid.
Yeah, do you want to come
yeah,
back in?
it's, I understand what you're saying as well, James. But if you add everything up, like the police, the fire service, the DCC, if you add all those up, then it becomes, it's not 13 pence anymore. It becomes a lot more. And if people, as you say, on universal credit, people can't afford it. At the end of the day, they can't afford it, but that's my opinion.
And
yeah.
Can I just come back?
Yeah.
Chair? In relation to that, we won't look at our side of things. We are providing a service, and I think 13 pence a month, £1.80 a year, or roughly, for a Band Aid property, which the majority of the properties in this area will be, we're providing an amazing, brilliant value of service for that 13 pence a month per household.
Chairman,
Alan Spencer wants to.
I just want to clarify that obviously people who receive housing benefit don't pay council tax. That's what the LCTRS element is. That's what we get from the county council to make up for the fact that those people who receive housing benefit don't pay the council tax. So just to be clear, if you receive housing benefit, you don't pay the council tax. Just
Alan, did you want to come in?
I did want to comment. First of all, let me make clear that we are offering a service which, when Dave comes back next month, will realize that not many other people offer us the service the way we do. We are working with the community. We have 9 pledges, and we are working well towards the 9 pledges. And when you say there is no point, you must remember that over, 3 or 4 years, we were in a minority, but we never stopped contributing. David's mouth has always gone, we have always contributed. There was no time when the Labour group, when it was in a minority, ever said, there is no point. And there was a time when you were in power that we had no point. So let me say one thing. Don't give me that rubbish about not having a point, because this council relies on contribution from their elected representatives. And if those people do not contribute, then what David said is perfectly valid. There is no use putting a hand up to reject something. We are looking for a positive contribution, not a negative or an ambivalent contribution. And we need to recognize that. So don't tell me that there is no point. We always made our mouth go when we were in the same situation as you are in.
Yeah. I was going to say you come in, obviously.
No.
So I've got Carl next.
Yeah, I just think that good on you, David, for giving a reason why you voted against it. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's what it's all about in here. So, you know, that we're operating in a democratic world. We all have a right to an opinion. This is the place to give your opinions. People can put their hand up and have a different opinion and vote whichever way they want. But I think that, you know, for those people who choose to just sit and object to things without giving a view or a reason why, you know, they're absolutely sort of treating the people who elected them and who are represented with utter contempt to come in here and not have a voice on behalf of their people, and just sitting and objecting to things and not putting an alternative forward, for me, is not adequately representing the people who put them there in the first place, Chair.
Move progress, Chairman.
Sounds like a plan. Right, we had 4, we had against, we didn't have any abstentions, so does anybody want to abstain on this one? Wow. Do we want to start again? Just so people can... What? Well, start again. Right, who's for the motion? Okay, thank you. Who's against the motion?
No abstentions. Motion is carried.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 11, committee actions update.
Thank you, Chairman. Limited amount to report back at this time. We've not established the environmental projects steering group yet because we're too close to Christmas, so it will come in January. The County Durham Plan consultation, I have written back to Ian Thompson. Had a meeting with Ian Thompson. Ian Thompson, I'm sure I've read this back before, said that he would be prepared to make some funding available, some consultancy available to the Town Council to help set up this forum that we wanted. And I wrote back to him and I've said, yes, please. I'm waiting for a response from him on that. The DFIB, James, is there any update on DFIB?
Only the Job Centre have now agreed that they 100% they will have it there, and it's going to be a process of waiting for their facilities team to carry out the electrical works from inside the building so it can be housed outside. They told me, unfortunately, this is a slow process on their behalf, but I can show you the emails to back everything that I say. It is going to go ahead, and that wheel is moving very, very slowly, but it will happen.
Finally, Chairman, we've got an outstanding action from the 13th of June 2017 in respect of the Youth Council. Now, we've just had a vote on the budget, and we've not put the budget in for this, and we've not put it in the medium-term plan. So I would ask members to either consider whether or not they want to put it back in the plan, or if not, just take it out because it's just been outstanding for a long time. We've never moved on it.
Anybody?
I think we should take it out if nobody's want to take it up.
Can't do it, look how that's what happened.
Yeah, Chairman, if there's been no update on it, I do think it's time to take it out. One of my concerns, we get this report, and then the actions take a long time to happen. And what I'm suggesting now is that we take this report, we still have the traffic light system, but everything that we've agreed to in the budget is given a page. It has an action plan on it, it has who's responsible and the budget. And I expect to see that back here early next year. And we will monitor it and we'll put it into a review so that when staff reviews and appraisals are put in, we'll look to see who's responsible for not doing things and why they haven't happened. We'll be able to monitor the budget on that and we'll be able to monitor the access, and then we can deal with it. So, a little bit of a different approach. The budget's set, other than the approval for the full council. So let's take all those actions and get them into sheets and into appraisals and bring them back in a different format as well as this traffic light system.
Is that a proposal?
It is.
I'll second that.
Val is seconded, before anybody else could. Just want to go through. Anybody else want to comment? Carl, it's you.
Just briefly, I think it's quite important because there was obviously a lot of change last year. After we went through full council, we agreed a new medium-term plan. And I think we've got a little bit of time now, we've set the budget. We'll spend a little bit of time in the new year with my advice to get this stuff in place. It'll make everybody's life a little bit easier to be able to plan ahead about what information and decisions we're going to be coming through the council cogs and when. And I know you did a report last year on timescales and we went, no, we don't want you to take 12 months on something, we want it done in 3. So I think it would be helpful for us to have a forward plan about the delivery of the warden services and then updates are coming back, as well as all of the other items of expenditure in the county plan. Some of it you won't be able to answer straight away, so some of it might need to be filled in. So obviously we've still got to have our meeting to talk about the new funding arrangements, for example, which we said we do report back to council. But I think that getting this sort of management, like this forward plan for the council in place, will help everybody to know what's coming forward and when, and who's responsible in the council as well.
I think what you're asking for is an activity plan rather than an action log.
Yes, an activity plan, but we'll still have the action plan.
And then we can keep the action log running for additional actions that come through committee. Yeah? And that's carried.
Does anybody want to come in on this one? No? Is everybody happy with the suggestion? Seems like it. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to number 12. Well, I'll do number 11 and a half before number 12. Wishing everybody an exciting Christmas and a happy New Year before we break up for the end of the week. So number 12 is date and time and venue of next meeting. It's on Wednesday the 13th of February. That doesn't tell you what the time is, but it'll be 6:30 at Stanley Civic Hall. Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.